The following program was produced by the United States Courts.
I've been blessed to have a lot of wonderful mentors. My high school debate coach was a mentor, and he was really hard on us, and he really had high expectations. But that turned out to be a really good thing. You want people that are hard on you and have high expectations. In my early years, the most remarkable things that were going on was the civil rights movement in the United States. Although that was something that I was always aware of, my family talked about all the time, I decided at the age of 5 I wanted to be a lawyer. And it never occurred to me, at least in my younger years, that that would be, exceptionally difficult or different or unique for me as a black woman to be a lawyer. Because really from the time I first started articulating that I wanted to be a lawyer, my father was very encouraging of me. And it was many years later before I came to understand how special that was, particularly when I met other women my age whose parents didn't even encourage them to go to college because that was something their sons were going to do, but their daughters just needed to get some work skills and then get married and have children. I didn't have that kind of discouragement from my family at all. From the very beginning, it was, you want to be a lawyer, you're going to be a lawyer. When I went on to law school, I had law school professors that, again, seemed to push me by setting the bar higher than I would have set for myself, perhaps. When I graduated from law school, my first position was as a law clerk for a federal bankruptcy judge. And he was someone that taught me so much about life and the practice of law and litigation, and again, set the bar really high for me. I'll never forget, it was a 2-year clerkship, and near the end of that 2-year clerkship, he said to me, "It's time for you to go." And I said, "What do you mean? Are you kicking me out?" And it's not quite time. He says, "No, I'm not kicking you out, but it is time for you to go. I've seen you grow a lot in the last couple of years. This is not the type of position that you would be happy doing for many years or for a career. It's time for you to get out there and be a lawyer and start lawyering." The process of becoming a district court judge is really difficult and unique. It's a presidential appointment. It's a lifetime appointment. With the advice and consent of the Senate, so you go through a Senate confirmation hearing, and it's oftentimes a very long, drawn-out process. And there was another point in the process that brought tears to my eyes. I had an interview at the White House by the White House counsel, and I had been to the White House as a kid on a tour, but I'd never been to the White House since. And so here I am, I go through the security at the gate, and I'm walking up that big circle drive, and I remember something my grandmother had told me. And my grandmother had long since passed away. But I remember her telling me how proud she was to read about Mary McLeod Bethune, who was a civil rights pioneer, being invited to the White House by Eleanor Roosevelt. And at least in my grandmother's thinking, an African-American woman had never been invited to the White House as a guest, and she was invited there to have tea with Eleanor Roosevelt. And how special that was, and how great that was, and how proud the African-American community was that Mary McLeod Bethune got invited to the White House. And as I was walking up that circle drive, all I could think of was my grandmother, and how I wish my grandmother could be going to that interview with me and holding my hand and walking up to the White House with me. Because I can tell you, when my grandmother told me that story, I never could have foreseen myself doing something like that. I mean, as I've said, you never can dream big enough sometimes. I think you can be overly confident and cocky as a kid, but yet you still never really know all that's in store for you. You just need to make sure that you are ready and positioned and able and willing to accept all that comes your way.